Oh,
Somebody asked that the other day. Why is John always gonna get the top left? I'm like, that's his spot.
I just like it here. I like it here. I'm comfy.
I have no issue with it.
Jimmy, I told you can't manhandle the mic like that. It's got to be sitting.
I know. I just have to get it out of my system.
We can hear all of that fumbling around.
Yeah, we can see how excited you are. What is it, a brand new mic or something?
Big win. We're going to get right into it. Big audience already kind of waiting to jump in
a win
and talk about it. A phenomenal win, as Bobby Manning likes to call everything phenomenal. And it's hard to argue. This is a team that beat you last time, though you were short. They're without Gordon Hayward tonight, but that's not excuse enough. It's a game that was trending in that direction where, like, here we friggin' go again. And a lead is slipping away, 11-point lead with 4 minutes left, and the game is tied late. When Rozier hit that three, I know we were all thinking it. And they held on. They did a couple. They did great things. They didn't settle for shots. Tatum went to the bucket. They got to the free throw line. They got stuff going to the rim. 2 phenomenal defensive stops late. Rob Williams obviously with the block. Jaylen Brown contests there on that LaMelo one, forcing an air ball. And that's it. Clutch.
The Rob block.
The Rob block.
Oh, huge.
Big performances in the clutch.
Block.
Yeah. And they did it. And they win. Yeah. Big win.
And they needed this.
Look at these records, guys. 28-25, 28-24. They're creeping.
I mean, they needed this because I felt like they were going to start getting this false sense of security, right? Like, oh, yeah, we either blow teams out by 20 or we're going to lose in the fourth quarter in a new way, right? It seemed like they were finding new ways to blow these fourth quarter leads or to go into the fourth quarter with a completely different game plan. But that wasn't the case. I thought Jason Tatum in particular, the last few minutes of the game, he had 2 back-to-back possessions going straight to the rim, and that's exactly what we want to see. That's exactly what we were complaining about when we don't see it. So I thought that was huge. He was also perfect from the free throw line. I would like to see him get there a little more. My only beef, I think, from Tatum is the chirping. He earned that technical foul not in that moment, but he was earned throughout the course of the game. Look, I'm not to keep, I'll keep things positive, but I can't help but notice that, like that technical foul could have went very differently for the Celtics. If Rob Williams doesn't make that block, who knows? Maybe this thing goes into OT. But either way, we're seeing improvements from the Celtics team because those are the type of wins that really are going to shape you. The one that you have to really fight for. And I felt like the Celtics, granted, they have won 4 out of the last 5. They didn't have to really fight for those wins in the last 3-4 minutes of the game. So I thought that was significant tonight.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Bobby, what's going on, buddy?
Nothing. Just hopped out of Ime. Not a ton from him. Shots falling. Essentially, the message here, he says he thinks that they did a lot of the things that they've done in other games, especially recent games, and they were able to get more shots to fall in this one. But overall, I thought this was just outstanding. Like much of what Josue said there. This was the best win of the year. I can't think of a close second, just considering the amount of contributors that they had. The stableness.
They had 2 bench players play tonight.
I don't understand this argument, Jimmy. This is their rotation. Who else do you expect to jump in and play and help?
How do you expect them to sustain that?
Maybe they don't, but it's better that they did it here than they didn't. They played a really good team. I hold the Hornets in enormous regard. I think they're one of the best teams in the East. They were pressuring them all game long. The Celtics turned the ball over a ton. They had a very tumultuous moment late that Josue talked about there with the technical and the game-tying 3 after, and they got up and made 2 or 3 plays there and pulled the game out. I mean, they were 9-17 in clutch situations coming into this one, and they handled this one, I thought, exceptionally. So I don't know how you nitpick this one. They held it off.
It's not a nitpick. They did what they had to do to win late. It's a good win against a quality opponent. They lose this game a couple of weeks ago, I think. So everything trending in the right direction. You have another good Marcus Smart game. It's concerning when your 2 stars play poorly because you're not going to win a lot of games when these guys play well. So that was counterbalanced by exceptional performance by Josh Richardson, coming off the bench there. Jaylen was rough all game long, so you don't love that. So, again, it's not a perfect game by any means, but it's the most complete game is how I put it. It's a good gritty win, because some stuff wasn't going your way and you overcame it, which is great. So, it's nice to know that you can compensate for nights that those guys are off. I don't know that they can do it a lot because I don't have a ton of faith in this bench, but you also don't expect Brown and Tatum, to both be cold and have rough games this often. Again, Brown's we'll get into Brown a little bit later. Definitely a rough game, and he's in the news for different reasons. But Smart again, great. Rob making plays late. A lot of positive things coming off of this game.
Well, we always criticize.
And 30 assists. I mean, it's always
we always
that's
criticize them. We always criticize them when Brown and Tatum don't play well and nobody steps up. So we have to give credit where it's due. I mean, yeah, they went to a very short rotation tonight, but Richardson played like a guy that he couldn't miss a shot out there. So I mean, why not play him extra minutes?
Yeah.
And why not? Why go to Neesmith and Romeo and those guys for what? We know what they're capable of on offense, and it isn't much. So I'm happy with the way that people stepped up. And yeah, I mean, Tatum and Brown didn't have their shots going tonight, but I thought that they still contributed on the defensive end. And down the stretch there, Tatum made some pretty big baskets for them, so that was nice.
Yeah.
And we mentioned Rob coming up big late in that game there with a big block. I mean, PJ Washington couldn't even get the ball out of his. He thought he had a clean shot, and the ball didn't even.
And that happens all
hands.
the time with Rob. You wonder how guys don't account for that at this point. He's able to make a number of plays at the 3-point line. They're just incredible, and he set a tone early in this game too. I thought Rob was just awesome here. Everybody like up and down, and Brown, Tatum, what they didn't do in shot making, I thought they made up for with other things. The charge take by Brown, the playmaking late by Tatum, getting in the lane, driving and kicking. All those different things there made up for the fact that they didn't have the biggest scoring nights in the world. And you know what? That's what you want to see those two players start to do. They're not going to solve every game with their scoring, especially when teams take them out of the game.
Yep.
That's not what the Hornets did here, but they were still able to turn up the playmaking and get baskets for Richardson, Grant, those type of guys.
Yep, no doubt.
I thought they did a really good job from the beginning of just passing the ball, but also recognizing the weak side constantly. I mean, you saw those open looks for Grant Williams. You saw obviously Josh Richardson get hot. And it's funny you say that, Jimmy, because I was just I was telling Bobby towards the end of that fourth quarter, I'm like, Richardson, it's rare that he's earned that moment at the end of the fourth quarter, but like this is easily his best game of the season. So it's interesting how different that the Celtics offense can be, when he's hot, the way he is from the perimeter. So I thought Ime did a really good job keeping him in there.
Season high 12 boards for our guy Al tonight too. Can't forget him.
Yeah,
that's all I have to say about Al.
You can.
That's all I have to say. Season high though.
No, it's good. It was good. Sorry, we're gonna bring Bobby back in just a second. It's a little bit noisy where we are there. So Josue, how's the noise around you, buddy?
It's better. It's better, but that group of people, it really wasn't that funny. I don't know what the joke was, but they were.
No laughing on this show. Didn't get the memo.
Yeah. It wasn't great. It wasn't a great joke. I put Bobby onto my spot. Oh wait, looks like he's moving. Right.
I made him move. It was loud. The robots were fighting behind him again.
The Transformers were going up.
The Transformers. There's another Transformer, battle. So yeah, I mean, look, I'm not gonna lie. In a weird way, I actually like the Miami game a little better, even though they were totally depleted. That was like soup to nuts, like as complete a game as you had. But again, the opponent was a bit of a chump. The Charlotte's exactly the type of team you have to be able to compete with, right?
Totally.
Those are the guys in front of you. Those are the guys you're trying to leapfrog into your 5 and your 6 spots. You're not cracking that top 2 or 3 in the East, but like you're trying to play yourself up, and around these guys. And again, record-wise, they're right there now. So, I'll ask you guys point blank. The way the Celtics are playing now, Charlotte at full strength. Who are you taking?
I'm still taking Charlotte.
I'm still taking the Celtics, honestly, just because of the way this team has been playing. But it wouldn't have been remotely this easy. I mean, they got a lot of guys, and that's the reason why I think the Charlotte Hornets match up so well with the Celtics. Right? They have guys that can put the ball on the floor. They can really make you defend, and the Celtics just they've struggled to keep that defensive intensity for 4 quarters straight. But they did a really good job tonight. Obviously there was a different approach compared to what we've seen in the past. If this team is completely healthy, I mean, I would say it would be much closer. It would have been a tougher fight, but I still probably give it to the Celtics. I mean, but listen, the standings do matter. I mean, you have a couple of matchups coming up where you can really catch up here. The Brooklyn Nets. I mean, you 3 games behind Brooklyn for the 6th place, and and you got a couple of games where you can really catch up in that race, I mean, that's big here. I mean, we talked about this part of the season, how the Celtics have to start picking up wins here. But beating teams that are right in front of you, in the standings, that's huge. That would bode well for this team in terms of them securing a playoff spot. I know it's maybe a little too early to talk about that, but it's worth bringing up because this is how underwhelming this team has been all season long.
Well,
It is. We're starved for it. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, exactly. We're starved for it, right?
That's why Bobby's like, this is the best game in the history of my life. And I'm like, Bobby, come on. Like,
How 30 are you, Bobby?
The kid's, but he's dying. He's dying for something, right?
People, this has been the last 2 seasons. These are the types of games where you hang on to them a little bit longer because, damn, I mean, you're really searching for something, right? Now, I don't want to jump too far ahead here, but Celtics are, I think we can all agree, playing much better as of late. Right around the time it's the trade deadline. Who's playing the best as of late? Marcus Smart, who played probably the best tonight. Josh Richardson. Jesus.
I'll call him Jason Richardson right up until we trade him. I promise you.
Yeah, you've done that a couple times. And
well,
then
I've done it.
You just stopped.
I've written it. I will call him Jason for the rest of my life until he's no longer a Celtic.
I wish it was Jason. That'd be sweet.
I know.
I think you yelled at a damn it the last time you said it.
Yeah.
And then Schroeder. So you have 3 guys, and Schroeder didn't do much tonight. I know he's banged up or whatever it is. But you have 2 guys, let's say, who, are very important to the success of this team this season. So again, this goes back to what we've been saying all season long. What's the goal of this team? Is the goal to make a playoff run, or
what
is
the
goal?
Point of this podcast?
What is the point of this podcast? What is the point of this team? What is the point of this trade deadline? What are they thinking in Brad Stevens' office right now, or Wick's office? Are they just gonna get rid of Schroeder and get rid of Richardson to save a couple bucks and to pretend that they're looking towards the future? And if that's the case, then you don't have enough to roll with Charlotte or to roll with these teams that you're fighting for playoff positioning for. You're not deep enough. So which one is it? I guess, how many more games like tonight do we need to see before the trade deadline before people are saying, oh, well, they should be buyers or they should just stay put, ride this thing out and see if they can get anywhere.
I don't know. Again, I'm sorry. I didn't love tonight. I loved how it ended.
I didn't love it, but they pulled it off. They pulled it off.
I loved that they pulled it off. I didn't love tonight because, like we said, the super high turnovers and the poor games from your stars, but I loved things about tonight, and I love that they closed tonight the way they did. Let's bring in Sherrod Blakely to tell us what he loved about tonight. Sherrod,
hey fellas, what's going on, guys?
What up, bro?
You guys can hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Loud and clear.
All right.
Yeah, man.
Actually,
good.
John, you know what, John? I actually love the fact that their best players didn't play well, and I'm gonna tell you why. You're going to need wins to win games like this. You're going to need someone not named Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to actually carry you for long stretches of the game. And I thought Marcus Smart, Josh Richardson, Grant Williams had some big plays. And certainly, Rob Williams with the block there in the last minute. Huge plays from guys not named Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. But, for me, the most disturbing part about the game was that sequence where Tatum picked up the foul that he was not happy about. Then he picked up the tech. And then, they're on offense and the ball goes off of the defender's foot. It could have easily gone on Tatum's foot. So they caught a break there. Little things like that Tatum needs to clean up on nights like this when his shot isn't falling. That, to me, was the most bothersome part about this game. But other than that, I loved a lot of what I saw out there.
It is odd. It's almost like, like you've got a kid with emotional problems and they get themselves ramped up and you can't calm them down. It's really bizarre.
Yeah.
That okay, take a breath. It's really
and there's
bizarre.
no one around who can do that. There's no one around who could calm him down, which bothered me.
It's so strange that he can't check it, but I gotta get this complaint out. And everyone's like, Marcus thankfully stepped in. He's like, come, dude, Scal screaming from the sideline, someone get in front of him, man. It was like flipping out. It is bizarre. He can't let that go. You can't have that. And again,
especially at that point in the game,
we'd be killing him right now if they lost that game for losing his composure late. That would be a disaster. But
yeah,
it ended up being a blip. I liked some things that he did. They were still moving the ball late. They were still going to the basket, which is stuff that they hadn't been doing, which was good. Early in the fourth, I was worried because they got 3 happy, right? And I was like, uh-oh. And the lead started going away, but they when they needed them, they took it to the basket. Tatum did that one time. He got those free throws. Smart got to the free throw line as well. They hit him late, and then obviously defense kind of. So again, just the closing of this game is enough to be happy about it, considering you see what's happening. Rozier hits that 3. NBC puts the graphic on the screen. 4-12 in games decided by 5 points or less, and we're like, and it is Groundhog Day, so we're like, here we go, man. It's actually Groundhog Day.
Yes.
And it didn't happen. So good for them.
It's also my daughter's birthday.
Oh, nice! Happy birthday!
And my sister's birthday today.
Nah, now you just make stuff up.
And my friend Adam Fine and Rich Bertman's birthdays today.
A lot of birthdays.
Yeah.
Come on, the mother and the daughter share the same birthday. I don't believe it.
They do?
That's what he says. I don't know.
That's awesome.
Wow.
My mom and I are one day
time.
apart. My mom and I are 1 day apart.
I have a cousin that their birthday with, but that's it. But mother, daughter, what are the chances?
My birthday is in October for everybody listening.
There we go, Jimmy. Along with Nick Gelso.
Along with Nick Josue, you are correct. I think I'm a couple weeks before Nick, or no, maybe a couple days. I forget.
Couple days.
Jimmy.
That's
just drop the
gonna
Jim
be
and just call you me. You, Kai, me, you guys are one and the same, man. Jimmy.
That's it, baby.
All right. So when are we going to get into the controversy?
What about? I was gonna say that Groundhog died, didn't he? Didn't the Groundhog die? Am I making that?
What?
Punxsutawney Phil?
Yeah.
He saw it.
You think today he woke up, turned around, and died?
Stage fright.
No, but
Couldn't handle the pressure.
Before the second, he couldn't.
Fake news, dude.
I mean, it's probably a different one than it's probably.
The Groundhog didn't die today. Would that mean like? Would that mean like?
I'm going for the Celtics metaphor because it's not Groundhog Day.
Would that mean?
I hadn't heard that one either.
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if he died. I mean, in a year like the way things are going, all you have to do is see his shadow and he just dies on the spot.
The Groundhog died of COVID and we're
Talk about
stuck
a
in
bad
a stage for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
Josue, what are we talking about here? So again,
fake news, Josue.
Yes,
Groundhog.
So
the Groundhog Day.
Bobby had to relocate, but Bobby thought this was the win of the year. So Bobby, why?
I thought the two-way effort, the complete effort, not faltering start to finish and blowing the lead, they let them tie it in the end there. But overall, they were just able to withstand a bunch of different Hornets charges. And that's something they haven't been able to do this year. They've routinely crumpled. And outside of that Tatum technical foul sequence there was really no moment where they just crumbled and couldn't make plays. Smart and others were just doing it all game long. Tatum was getting downhill.
Well,
the passing sequences were crisp. It was just the most complete win of the year by far. I can't even think of a close number two.
I don't know. They did blow an 11-point lead from the 3:58 mark to a minute left, and so that wasn't great. And thankfully, they held them off late. But it was.
Well, the Hornets are a really good team. I would argue the Hornets are better than the Celtics.
They are. But
Bobby meant the year 2022, right, Bobby? You mean best win of 2022?
The season. The season as a whole.
The only thing I was frustrated with is the way they were shooting and their
well
assist
done,
totals.
Josue. Well done.
Yeah, I thought they should have been up a lot more. I actually thought when it was 6
they'll
and 7,
they'll blow out the Nets next week and they'll top it.
I think it should have been.
It's steps.
Oh man,
they let him hang around. I was a little bit worried, but again, they got it done late. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really what it comes down to is them being really under fire, having to execute, having to make plays to get the win, and they were able to do that. And to me, I think if you're Ime, you're really pleased at the fact that your guys got it done defensively. There were so many just little plays that didn't even they may not show up as jumping off the stat sheet besides Rob's block, obviously, but just the rotations defensively, making sure that guys did not have too much space when it mattered most. This was really defensively, I thought, one of their better games against a team that wasn't necessarily having one of those just off night shooting. The Celtics were the reason why Charlotte wasn't shooting as well as they would like. Whereas we've seen a lot of games where teams just are missing wide open shots. and it makes the Celtics defensive numbers look good, but that's just not what's happening. This was a earned victory against a quality team, the type of team that if you're going to make some moves, you got to win these games.
Yeah, and I think that the sense of character for this team, I think they needed these kind of wins. You know, like I said from the top, I mean, these blowout wins, sure, we love to see the Celtics do what they're supposed to do against those shorthanded teams, but to see them in that stretch where, okay, the sky's falling again, what are you going to do to react? And they came out with authority on both ends, and that's exactly what you want to see. You want the Celtics to have those kind of experiences from between now and April, and the ones where they end up victorious on the other end. You know, not the lopsided. You know, you threw the game away in the fourth quarter, you know, all over again, and reverted back to bad habits. They had a completely different approach tonight.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys about this. Because somebody, you know, it was an interesting point I thought somebody made, but they've clearly settled in on, I think their kind of bread and butter lineup at this point seems to be the starters with Richardson instead of Al. And then the question is, why aren't you starting with that? And again, there's nothing to be said. They had another good start again today, and they've been starting games strong of late. So the doldrums that they went through with that kind of double big lineup where they were starting quarters really slow. They had a lot of, Bobby, we talked about those 40-point halves where, you know, the offense was just stuck in mud. And, you know, in those games where Tatum was coming out of the gate shooting poorly to start, it felt like there was just no offense there. But that appears to be the lineup that they're digging right now. Ime had a curious comment last game about why he didn't play Al, you know, why he's not closing with him. And the rationale doesn't explain why he wouldn't close with him, but why he's starting with him. So I'm not sure, like, is this a crutch? Is this going away? Is eventually it going to evolve and move on? Because I really do think not
You
just
don't like it at this point, John?
it's not the double big. I really think Rob and Al should split the center minutes for the whole game. 48 minutes should go just to those two. And so you're not worried about anything else. I really do think that would be valuable. Just, you know, it's not that I hate the defensive effort that they're getting off of, but Richardson is a good defensive player. I think against teams that aren't friggin' really big there, I don't know why you're afraid of that. I'm not really sure why he's hesitant to make that switch. We've talked about doing it with Grant. We've talked about doing it with Romeo. Romeo didn't work. If Richardson's going to shoot like this and he's going to give you a little bit more pace and space, it seems like what they'd be looking for. So I'm wondering, I'm not saying like it's the worst thing in the world. I'm wondering if they'll think about going there because he's clearly digging that lineup.
I think they'll think about it, but here's the thing, John. With Al, you know exactly what you're getting, worst case scenario, which is a guy that's going to defend and get your rebounds early on. And that, I think, in Ime's mind, helps set the tone for the rest of the game. If you have Richardson in there, he may get hot, but I think it's a little bit harder for him to do that when you're opening the game with Tatum and Brown, who you know are going to be looking for their shots early on.
Yeah.
So as the game progresses, it makes sense to go with Josh Richardson because Josh he's a savvy vet who figure out where he can get in and fit in. And once he does that, you have to put him out there because he's one of your top 3 or 4 players the last couple of weeks. So I understand why Ime does it, but to your point, John, if Grant could just rebound the ball a little bit better, I think that you would see that transition. But the fact is, when Grant's out there, he ain't getting no damn rebounds. He'll knock down some threes, but he's just not built for that.
This is not what he does, right?
He's still the only guy that gets picked on a little bit at times, depending on who's
a
out
little
there on the
bit?
opposing team.
Who is that? Grant?
No, I don't think
Grant gets picked on. Yeah.
I don't think he gets picked on a lot anymore. I think he's had a rock solid defensive season. His rotations.
Again, we're using rock solid. When Bobby says rock solid, he means right around average. Okay,
that should be like a drink. That should be like a drink right there.
The Bobby glossary. Phenomenal is good. Rock solid is, you know, like.
Listen, I can find a bunch of tape this year. Grant really staying in front of guys, using his feet well, and playing good defense. He is.
I'm just waiting for you to say rock solid, Bobby. That's what I'm waiting for.
And that would be the reason to put him in there. The problem is you're elite defensively in the unit that they're starting games with. Yes, and that's actually the right description.
There we go. I know.
No team with 200 minutes. Only the Minnesota Timberwolves have a better lineup with 200 minutes than that starting unit. And you know what?
T-shirt.
Why would you get away from it? Why would you get away from it when it's playing so well? They're packing the paint. Teams have to run away on their initial drives because Rob's help side, Horford's containing. Horford can rotate out on the perimeter. There's no team that defends like them. And you know what? I'm getting pretty close to saying that they have the best defense in the NBA.
In the
when you think of
history
Rob's,
of sports.
when you're thinking of Rob's help side defense, the versatility that Horford plays with, Smart's point of attack, and the length that Brown and Tatum can rotate inside with, I mean, they're thin, Jimmy. I agree with that. Like, their bench has to get figured out, but their starters, they have found something there, and they got to roll with it until it becomes a problem. And right now, it's their biggest asset, the defense that group plays with. I mean, they're playing with more pace in that group, so the offense is getting better with that combination. Guys are hitting shots at a higher level. Now the movement is good. I'm perfectly okay with that starting lineup at this point. I think it's a big asset for them. I really do.
Fair enough. So you guys are fine. I'm not freaking out the way I was before. I still just think offensively.
The numbers are amazing.
I think offensively they're challenged, and that's the thing though, is like, if one thing works really well, but other things are whatever, there is some tinkering I still think that can be done.
That's the deadline.
I've always thought, I've always thought that that's been easy. I don't think you can experiment with lineups when you're getting into those final 20 or so games into the season. So I am surprised there hasn't been a little bit more just to try to kick it. I do think there's it really is like a security blanket situation here. And as we said, he doesn't want to close with it. So there's something in that lineup he doesn't love. So I'm just curious why he sticks with it at the front. And sets the tone. Yeah. Right.
I think down the stretch, I think he's looking for the best offensive lineup that he can put out there that's not going to crush them defensively.
But it's strange, though, because you're up 10 and you're playing your best offensive lineup. Wouldn't it stand to reason at that point? They're so worried about stagnating late that they play an offensive lineup with a 10-point lead. That's where you're supposed to load up and have your defense out there and say, screw it. We'll just score 2 the rest of the way and we'll be fine. We should be able to keep them off the board. So it is counterintuitive.
Well, I think that with their offense, that offensive group down the stretch, the drop off with that group defensively, I don't think is as concerning to Ime as the drop off with that first group offensively. Mm-hmm. I mean, I love Al. I love what he's about, but 2 for 7. Unfortunately,
that's a swing guy, right?
That feels like a normal game for him at this point, which to me is very unsettling. The fact that he go 2 for 7, and that's just kind of, you don't want that necessarily on the floor down the stretch, because
he's the swing guy.
Yes, there's no doubt about that. He's become the 5th starter.
I think the difference between him and Richardson some of the times is the fact that one guy is going to give you that solid defense no matter what's going on the other end. Richardson, on the other hand, he's not going to. I don't know. I've seen stretches where if he's ice cold, he's not locking down the wing like he normally would. Like tonight. Tonight was a complete. It was the opposite. It was the complete opposite. It was. I'm feeling it from the other one side of the floor. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing on the other end and keep myself in the game. And that's exactly what happened. So I think it's a case-by-case basis, and we know that he is a streaky shooter. We knew that from the moment he got traded over to the Celtics. But at the same time, though, you're not quite sure which guy's going to show up. So let's wait to see if he finds him. Let's wait till he finds some consistency before we start talking about making these, drastic changes.
Well, that's why I think he's going to. That's why I think he'll stick with Al until further notice, because he knows exactly what he's getting. They're going to be nice where Al's going to make a lot of shots, and you're going to be ecstatic about that. But when he's not doing that, he's still going to play good defense, and he's still going to help you to some degree, help space the floor, even when he's not making shots, because he's still in the minds of some defenses is a threat. And Richardson he's either ridiculously jacuzzi hot, or he's like middle of Antarctica cold, where he can't make nothing. There really isn't kind of a mid consistency type thing with him. And that's okay, because that's a bench guy for you. That's what guys coming off your bench are supposed to be.
He's the most interesting guy by far, Richardson. I mean, you have this lineup with him and the starters, him playing for Horford that was plus 35 coming into this. Looked great again down the stretch here. He's a shot maker, and listen, relative to the league, Richardson's not really a shot maker, but on this team, he's one of your better guys. That cutoff Rob, I thought, was the key play in the 4th quarter. And overall, his defense, as Josue talked about, maybe dictated by offense a little bit, but overall, he's rock solid on the perimeter too. So he's going to be interesting. Is he part of your bench into the future? Is he a guy you split with here? Because
So
I
this-
think he could bring a lot of value to a different team. And
This
I don't
is-
know how much he swings this team all that much still.
Who, Richardson?
Yeah.
So this is where things are getting weird because
You
now
have to rebuild your bench a little bit.
what are
this
you
deadline.
doing right now, guys? We're a week out. And it sounds like Schroeder's gone, and Schroeder's been marginalized anyway. He's been in the 15, 16, 17-minute range now for the last several games. He's not performing super well with the bench. He might even be banged up. He's starting to look superfluous, and I don't think people are going to miss. I think a lot of people weren't going to miss him no matter what, but I think at this point his impact is so minimal that it's not going to be that big a loss if and when it happens. But now, if Richardson is being counted on as being a core member of your group and closing, and you flip him, because there are rumors now that there are teams who are interested, and you're dumping him for salary or whatever it is. And what's the latest one we're looking at here?
The Jazz
Usually-
were in on him.
The Jazz, the
Ingles.
Wolves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That Wolves thing seems like it's in the past, though. It was a conversation
think
that they
that's-
had for Beasley
that
that
already
didn't
ended.
work out. Yeah.
So he might be available. And really what it comes down to is how does this work kind of with everything else? Because I'm not going to call it a bombshell, but the thing that got thrown out there this week was the obviously the Jaylen Brown rumor, which I know everybody heard and everybody's talking about. So we'll talk about it here. Jaylen Brown could request a trade. I understand could can mean a lot of things. There's a lot of people who are crying fake news. What does that mean? We don't know what it means,
Here
but what
goes
we
the
do
chat.
know. What we do know is the source of this is not a bomb thrower. It's a person who has contacts and who probably talked to people and he heard, yeah, it's always a possibility if things don't turn in one direction or another that Jaylen could walk or could start looking for the
To
door.
demand a trade.
This is not something that's odd. It's not something that's out of left field. It is something that we've been worried about for a year and a half with this team, that if they don't figure out a way to right the ship, you're going to be entering this offseason with Jaylen Brown, and then the next year on is his walk year. And you're running up.
That's
Basically,
how quickly it's been. Yep.
That's how fast it goes. If you don't trade him this offseason, the clock is ticking. You pretty much have until the following trade deadline to do it, or else you're stuck with him in a walk year and he has no value anymore because no one's going to take him for just a 1-year rental without any certainty that he returns. So you've got some problems here. You either got to make everybody happy, and it's always been about making Brown and Tatum happy, making them believe everything is going in the right direction. So if you're Jaylen Brown, Sherrod, and you're sitting here and you're thinking, okay, let's see some improvements, and they start doing things like trading Schroeder and Richardson, what's that going to say to you?
Well, if you're Jaylen Brown, I think it depends on couple things. First, are you being kept in the loop on what they're doing before it's done? Because to me, when you're Jalen's at that point where he shouldn't be flipping over, his phone to find out the Celtics are making a trade. That should be a conversation that he knows about well in advance. And if that's not happening, you're opening the Pandora's box to him walking, because players, aside from being empowered, they want to be in the know. And the Celtics, to me, when you look around, Jaylen and Jason are the only ones who should be on a no basis. Everyone else, it's need to maybe know. They need to know. So Jaylen, I'm not as
Grant's
worried
knocking
about
on the door. Let me in.
Right. I'm not that worried about
What's going on?
Jaylen bouncing. I'm not. I think Jaylen is going to be here for a long time. Because I don't think the Celtics are at a point, and I don't think they will get to a point where they feel that he wants to leave. He's going to make that clear to them. I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't.
See, I don't think it's something that the Celtics are thinking about right now, but I think it is definitely a possibility. I mean, when I first read the report, I was like, well, yeah, duh. I mean, a first-round exit, I mean, I'm sure there will be talks about it. Maybe not from Jaylen per se requesting a trade, but it's going to be in his mind a bit. Not that he – listen, Jaylen is putting together another great season, right? And I feel like we say this every single year. Like, he continues to improve. And if this team doesn't get out of the first round and fail, like, that's a failed season, right? And this is something we talked about before the start of the season. That this season was so important to make everyone a believer, right? For a number of reasons, right? New head coach, Tatum and Brown as the new leaders of this team. There's no question about that. There's a lot of different things that could happen, that could transpire. But if you're Jaylen and you're entering a contract here, and let's say halfway through the season we have another 500 club, what's going to prevent Jaylen from saying, well, maybe I need to lead the ship elsewhere, or maybe I need to find a better situation, that I can actually do that. Now, I don't think Jalen's the kind of guy without one in mind is going to go out there, pick up the phone and say, look, guys, I want out of here. But things change in the NBA quickly. We know that every 2 or 3 years, there's a new super team, a new super duo out there. And who's to say that Jaylen won't want to be part of something like that? I don't know, 9 or 10 months from now, midway through next season. So I think Celtics fans have to keep things realistic and remember the fact that, it will be a contract year and that these things can happen really quickly. We've seen it in the past. Shit, we saw a team in the, Oklahoma City Thunder, the very next season split ways, and that team got to the NBA Finals. So, I mean, this could definitely happen. But again, when I first saw the report, it was one of those like, yeah, obviously that can happen, but it's a big could.
What was your reaction to me?
My reaction was obviously. I mean, and I've said this all season. We'll know a lot about this team at the end of this season. I think a lot of people will have made a decision on whether or not they want to stick with Tatum and Brown leading this team, or if one of them has to go. I don't think anyone wants to see both of them go, but there's going to be a lot of questions answered at the end of this season. And a lot of that has to do with what Josue just said. Yeah, I mean, if they're a first round exit, then yeah, there's a good chance that Brown's like, you know what? This isn't working. And if it's a first round exit with Brown standing in the corner, much like he did last playoff series, or the previous one, I should say, because he was hurt the last one, then yeah, I can totally see that. I mean, and honestly, what's the surprise? Because you now have like 3 seasons with these guys, underwhelming, if that's the word you want to use. If they do come up short, I certainly wouldn't be surprised. I think me and John both had the Celtics as a fringe playoff team to start the year, and everyone here said they weren't even a playoff team until Schroeder came on board. So really, I mean, I think they're kind of right around expectations, to be completely honest right now. My question is, does Jaylen Brown want to be in Boston? It's the same question I have for Jason Tatum. There's been so many examples of just being like, do these guys really like it here? Do they like playing with each other? Do they like Boston? Do they like the organization? So those are the things that I want answered. And if I don't have obvious yeses to those answers, then of course I can see a situation where Brown would be like, you know what? He might leak out that he's interested.
But why? That's my question. So this is where I'm trying to wrap my mind around. Like, a story like this has to come from Jaylen's camp, because I can't see an advantage to it coming from the Celtics. Why would so to me, it has to be someone close to Jaylen who's talking about him not being 1,000%.
Unless it's someone in the Celtics who's worried about it.
Why? But why put that out there? Why create an environment? Why, if you're worried about it, why would you want to create an environment where people are talking about trading Jaylen Brown and then he gets annoyed about it? To me,
he might want to send a signal higher up.
I don't know. To me, this is coming from Jaylen's camp, and if so, I'm curious what the motivation is. To light a fire? To what? I'm not sure.
I can't figure it out either.
Sherrod,
I'm not sold on it necessarily coming from Jaylen's camp, because think about this.
I agree.
If Jaylen, if you're getting some vibe that maybe he's thinking like this, don't you want to know what his value is without asking teams for his value? This is the kind of stuff that will get you phone calls that, even though you didn't request those phone calls, you're going to get them now. People are going to say, hey, I saw this about Jaylen. What are you guys looking for? Now, all of a sudden, you have a conversation that you did not initiate, but if you put it out there, you sort of kind of did initiate. So I'm not convinced. And there's another wild card factor in all of this that we haven't really talked about. I'll be very candid with you. I don't know how this will play out, but the agent that represents Jaylen Brown also represents Al Horford, also represents Marcus Smart, also represented Joe Johnson when he's here. So I just ran down like damn near half of their rotation
Glush.
under one umbrella. Yeah, Jason Glush. And who's a great guy. I mean, I love Jason. He's really a good. Sam Hauser is another one of his guys, the shooter. So that's why I'm not sold on that necessarily coming from, Jaylen's camp, because, I mean, his camp is well stocked with folks who are all under the same umbrella. So I'm not sure if that makes a whole lot of sense. So that's why there's a lot of murkiness with all this. There's no clear direction where this is coming from. But the bottom line is this: Jaylen is going to have some tough decisions to make this offseason as far as what he wants to do with his future, whether he wants to double down and try to get this thing done with Tatum, or whether he wants to branch out and be, kind of that alpha. But I can tell you right now, though, when you look around the NBA, there's no one-man show anymore. You can't get it done by yourself. You're
Whether
going to need somebody who can be a significant difference maker with you, and even having one guy like that may not be enough.
This is all about the deadline, and it asserts what I've been saying is that this is a critical deadline for this team. You got to start to establish some direction here, even if this doesn't completely dictate where you're going to go in the offseason. You got to kind of set the table here, and somebody, whether it's Brown's camp or whether it's someone inside the Celtics, wants to see a shakeup here more
I
than
don't get
seemed
it.
to be in the fold before. You know,
It's
and
always possible it's a Celtics trial balloon to see how the fans react, and I understand that as well. Which is, hey, if you put it out there, let's see which way the wind is blowing. If the world isn't that pissed off
well, remember
about
the
it,
report.
maybe
the
that gives
note-
us a green light. So it's always possible. It just seems like a weird one. That's all.
Well, remember the note from that report that there was a thought that Brad might make more substantial change last offseason, and he went the conservative route. I do think there's a little bit of a divided thinking in this front office, not only on Smart, but on overall, like what they're doing here. You know, whether it comes to clearing out rookie spots for rookies. We've read a report about that coming from the heavy publication, Bull Pet, over the last week or so here. So you hear different things about what this team should do. I think there's kind of mixed thoughts on, you know, what direction they should take this in here. And it's all about Brad here, right? Because all we've heard from Brad is that they're only going to make a move if it gets them closer to a championship. I still wonder if Brad's taking on this mindset of, we're waiting for the big one. You know, we're keeping all these chips on the table, much like Ainge did. And he, of course, learned from Ainge that the needle moving moves are the ones that are going to get you there. I completely disagree because I think you're so far away from contending. You have to start to do things now to improve yourself.
Bobby, I got something for you.
What you
Ready? A comment from Marcus Smart. Are you ready for it? Marcus Smart says the Jays have been doing a blank job of moving the ball and making right plays. Phenomenal job.
got? Wow.
That's a
Bobby,
great word.
Did he give a little shout out at the end?
Phenomenal.
No, that's a wink at us, guys. You know that.
We know
Right?
Marcus
That's a great
watches. So that
Somebody
could be a
watching
little...
the Garden Report. Someone be watching the Garden Report.
Phenomenal. They've been phenomenal.
They
I see
have.
you, Marcus. I see you wink at us. All right, cool. I like it. I'll take that.
We got you. Phenomenal.
If he says it again, it's not coincidence. It's not coincidence.
That's so funny. Phenomenal job. They've been phenomenal.
Well,
I
hey,
love
that's a
it.
far cry than from what he was saying about them not too long ago. What, a couple months
It's
ago.
another thing Marcus is trying to say is like, you know, it's another please love me sort of moment from Marcus.
Yeah.
But I mean, crap, man. What are you going to say about the dude right now? This was like not
Love
only was he having those like low shot, low point, but high assist games. Now he's scoring too, picking his spots with his shots, scoring efficiently. Like there's literally he's like above reproach these last 6 games heading into the
He is
trade
just-
deadline.
That
He really is.
Schroeder Smart debate we've had, he's drawn a fist through it. There's nothing you can say in Schroeder's
It's not
defense
even a
anymore,
Schroeder
right?
Smart debate. The Schroeder Smart debate is
It's dead.
one
Yeah.
person's flaws get talked about, the other person's flaws get excuses made. That's the debate. It's not the who's better argument.
It was at one point.
No, it wasn't. It was a why in the world are people crapping all over this guy when he has 1 game and 5 bad ones?
No, there was a stretch where Schroeder was better than Smart.
And there's a stretch where Schroeder was playing great.
It was
But
like 3 games.
No,
the
in your eye,
argument,
and you and Josue's eyes, yes, because you guys are on the all Marcus Smart defense team. We all know that. But to everybody else, and everyone could see that.
And we're
Schroeder
winning
was better.
that. You realize we're winning that debate right now,
Yeah,
right?
You
they're
are
looking
now.
pretty- he's looking
You are
pretty
now.
good.
congratulations.
Now that
Are
Schroeder's
you
hurt.
are
Yeah,
you guys
I mean,
also
Oh,
think
is
that
there an
now
apology
he's
cam
hurt?
coming here?
Wait, now Schroeder's hurt.
Apology came for
wow.
what? Everything we said about Schroeder was true in the time, in the moments that we
literally
were saying
everything?
it.
Yeah.
You guys were the ones that were in denial about it, didn't want to admit to it.
How about Smart?
How about
What
it?
what
all-
what are we gonna
yeah,
say?
but We all
Smart-
agreed that Schroeder wasn't a starting point guard, though. So, like, what are we talking about here? I mean,
Again, I just
no one wanted Schroeder.
guys.
no one
Do
wanted
we
Schroeder
have
be
to
the starting
do
point
this? Do we
We
have
No,
to do
we
this?
don't. We don't have to
Maybe.
do this.
Jesus.
I
Do we have to
Maybe
suffer
we
from
do.
short-term memory loss all the time with this? The argument with Smart is not doing it consistently over time, and the peaks and valleys, and always regressing back into the shot chucker and the sloppy guy
But
who's
has this
sloppy
made
with
you
the ball.
rethink what he can be for this
And can
team?
we all just agree he's been phenomenal? Phenomenal.
Oh!
Yes.
Can we just agree he's been
Yeah, over the
phenomenal?
last 5 games, absolutely.
If I give you
Yeah.
phenomenal for 5 games, will you just shut up about it? My
I'll
God.
take it.
And
I will take
Yes.
But
it.
we can actually admit it. When Schroeder's
Look at
phenomenal,
that stat line.
everyone on this show can admit it. Everyone and all the Celtics fans can't admit it. But we
Yeah,
actually
when Schroeder
can
has a
admit it.
phenomenal game, it's like, yeah, but did you see that time he
That
was
one
late to
pass.
switch?
See me roll the ball up the court.
That's me. That's me. That is
Yeah,
absolutely me.
No, that was Bobby earlier this season too, man. Schroeder couldn't do anything. It was like the one small thing he'd be
I know
like,
he had 20
"Did you
points,
see
but
that
he had
in the
like 7
second quarter?"
turnovers. Come on.
I think we've come to see you,
Hard
Schroeder.
Bobby would do Zapruder films on every friggin' Schroeder turnover. He'd have 28 points on 9 of 11 shooting and be like, look how sloppy he is with the ball here. And that
Here's
would
the
be it.
breakdown of those 2 misses.
Well, he's shown
See
to
how
not be-
open Tatum was on this one?
Yeah.
Ugh.
He's shown to
Get
not
this
be a
guy
great
off the
fit on
team.
this team, and especially in this role. So I'm interested. Like, what's this bench going to look like in a week from now? They need a substantial overhaul there. Not only because these young guys aren't going to get involved here.
Oh, damn it.
That ship has sailed to me. The idea of Romeo, Neesmith, and Pritchard becoming guys on this team this year.
Because
wonder
because why has it sailed? Because they
didn't commit to it.
set it out to sea. Because they just decided we're never going to play these guys, and the organization let Ime do it. I'm still baffled by it. Even if this team runs off a few wins, gets into the 6th seed, is competitive in round 1, I still don't know what you gained.
Well, it depends
I
on
don't
if they're
know
good
what
players.
I
Sean.
don't know what you gained. If
their
yeah.
careers are over after Boston, you'll look at it and say, maybe these guys just didn't have it. If they go out and kill it somewhere else, that's kind of going to tell the story. So we'll see. But at this point, I do not picture a clear out for the young guys next week. I do not see that being the direction that they're going to go in here. So do you want to stand pat and just see how far this can roll? I don't really know what the benefit of that is, because what's the interesting thing about this report, John, to me? The fact that he says, or whoever said, the sources, that Brown wants to see them play close to their potential, get their act together and play close to their potential. What's this team's potential? That's still a huge question to me. Is it a play and win, competitive round 1? I mean, no matter what you do, you're going to be up against a very tough team round 1, whether it's Milwaukee, Brooklyn, Philly, Miami. There's no clear path to round 2, never mind the East Finals. So what's Boston's potential? What does he want to see them do
Be
this
competitive. To me, just be competitive in the first round. Win a couple games, force a team to 6-7 games.
I don't know.
Riveting.
I mean, that's what we're
if
talking
you-
about for years to come with this group.
Bobby, I'm not sold on that. I mean, because you're assuming that the core group that they have now and the guys that are on the peripheral are going to be the same, and I just don't buy that. I think they're going to need to get lucky in the draft and free agency and get someone who, on paper, becomes a better player on the floor. Like Isaiah Thomas, for example, who was supposed to be just a little engine that could off your bench, and then he turns into a 2-time All-Star, 5th in league MVP voting. They're going to need to catch lightning in a bottle like that.
Well, that's like once in a freaking lifetime situation that happens. So I don't know how lucky you can expect them to be. You know what? Another issue.
Jimmy's like, well, that sucks.
Another issue we have here is if this Brown stuff, if there is some truth to it, if there's some, where there's smoke, there's fire type situation. How do you even go about approaching the draft or approaching free agency if you're talking about, one of your 2 best guys potentially not even being on the roster next season? How do you even approach players that you're targeting and things of that nature? And you're going to go in the next season just freestyling it again with, whoever you can get for Jaylen Brown because he asked for a trade? Plug and play again? I mean, this is shaping up to be another disaster offseason.
The way you're approaching it shouldn't have changed because you're 2 years away from. And honestly, this report, I don't think should be a big shock to anyone because of the fact that he's 2 years away from free agency. That's when guys usually start to make some inclination about their future. They start to think about it a little more. It becomes a problem that the team starts to think about. Are they going to sign another contract? Are you going to push right to the deadline?
But the front office needs to have a handle on it, and I don't know. I don't really have any reason to have confidence in them, at least at this point yet. So,
well, here's the thing. This deadline, you have to do everything you can to improve this team. And there are numerous guys out there that if you get aggressive enough can come help this team right now, make them a lot more competitive and stable, especially in that third wing spot or the first guy off the bench. And this offseason, if Brown does take a look at the situation and say, all right, I kind of want my own thing here, which I think is probably going to be a big driving factor for him at some point because he's an all-star. He's a guy who has full confidence in his abilities. He's a guy that I know for a fact thinks that he could lead a team if he had to, and he has done it here when Tatum's been out. So that's a driving factor with him, I think, as much as the team and the situation here. So if he decides this offseason, I want out, that sort of clears things up for you, Jimmy. You make a big trade for him now. The return would be substantial, and you build around Tatum. It's better that he does it now than in free agency 2024 and leaves you high and dry.
And that's the reason.
All right, Shaughnessy, but you don't have to do this right now.
But
that's not ideal.
But that's the reason why you won't be held hostage by it. You still have a ton of leverage this offseason if you were to trade him because he's coveted, which means you would get a legitimate return and you could shop and you could, do something that's not going to destroy your team if you had to.
And you can keep Tatum long term.
But that's also why I would not build for now. I would still, any trade I make now is for future considerations, not to make this current team more competitive. And if that involves deals,
well, you still don't want to lose Jaylen. You still want to kind of.
I'm saying
none of this is ideal. Right?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying deals right now. The motivation of them should be for what's going to make you better in a year or 2 years, not this year. You don't want to tank completely, but you're.
I agree with that.
You're looking for cap flexibility. You're looking for bringing in players who you actually would consider wanting long term, and that again is what are you willing to pay for? Could you bring in? I know, like Keith at Celtics blog floated something where they might get
two
Powell.
really good ideas today.
Powell would be outstanding, even though he's locked up till 25 or so, and you think they don't want to take on any extra contracts. The one thing they have going for them right now is they only have 4 guys under contract past 23, and that gives them some sort of flexibility, and it feels like that's something they're trying to maintain. Stay under the tax, don't add any extra things. Have some room to play with once you get there. But if you could bring in a guy who's a good piece that you can, continue to build with and would be a solid part of your rotation, you would do that. Otherwise, I would go for assets. I would go for picks. I would go for whatever. I don't care if you're trading Richardson here, if this team's going to be a fraction worse. If you're able to get rid of him, get rid of Al, get rid of things that are going to get you under the tax, that are going to get money off the books for next year. Imagine Al and Richardson both off the books next year. All of a sudden now you've got some money to play with.
Doing dances.
But I mean, now you've got money to play with, so then you can do other things. I would be looking at those types of deals, not stuff that's little band-aids that's going to make you maybe a fraction better this year. I just don't think that's that important.
I think that's at the top of the list, though, right, John? That has to be at the top of the list. Like at least trying to see what's out there for those guys and trying to pull off one of those deals that obviously the tax apron, but at the same time gives you a guy that you can, obviously whoever this guy coming in from the trade, you can consolidate those guys and hopefully it's a piece that you can lean on for the future. But I don't know how much talent those guys would attract at this point,
Yeah, that's a tricky thing. You're going to have to float some picks here. In those deals that Keith wrote about, especially, I think you'd have to include some pick compensation.
That's what I
do that. I don't know why you wouldn't.
He's missing picks in those deals, but they're good ideas. I just think you'll end up having to dump picks to get play.
And that's perfectly fine to me. Like you are overdue on trading picks to improve this team, to solidify the edges of it. Because Fournier last year, I'll still go back to that. Good move, gave them a boost. He just wasn't a sustainable piece because he was a free agent and he ended up getting paid a ton. If you can find another guy like that who can reliably hit shots off the ball movement Brown, Tatum, and Smart are creating right now, you're going to be in a much better spot as a team now and into the future. So those 2 guys he pointed out, Norman Powell, Harrison Barnes, who we've talked about forever, who would just be great next to the Jays. get aggressive with them. You know, like these are guys, they're not going to make you a championship team right now, but they're going to make you a much better team throughout your rotations. You can run some better bench units. Your closing lineup's going to look much better with those kind of guys, and they're signed for multiple years, like you talked about, John. That's the key. So that probably makes Brown feel much better about the situation, like having a guy who's not going to brick the shots that they create while they're being double teamed in the lane.
Yeah.
They've been overdue on a move like that, and I just don't know why you hold on to your picks when those picks aren't going to impact your team until 2-3 years from now.
You're here because you failed to pick, and you have to start getting it right because you cannot survive in this league without drafting and developing. You can't do it. And if you're trading picks, it has
just like
to
the
be
Suns.
the picks to me, Bobby. Here's where they get thrown away. They get thrown away in deals for like if you're the Bucks, you have
a lot of picks.
But no, if you're the Bucks, you can throw away a first-round pick on a PJ Tucker because you think you need him to win a championship.
Right.
There, it's worth it. If you're the Celtics, you don't throw away a pick on that caliber
It's
player.
not throwing them away.
It is
You're
to
getting
get
good stuff back.
No. This is why I disagree with it. You're a team like the Celtics. You're getting only fractionally better, and you're not getting any closer to contending, and you're killing yourself for the future in terms of either hitting a home run with a pick or having an asset you can roll up into a bigger deal later. You do not give away picks to just get a guy who's a little bit better than the guy you have.
If that power deal is on the table and they want to pick,
I'd have to
think
no? about that one more closely. But again, I'm really,
John?
I'm so done with the drafts and the development.
Even for someone like Powell,
Bobby, you can't be done with the drafts and development. That's that is absolutely
the luckiness
essential to franchise building.
Don't you dare let Austin Ainge hear you say that, bro.
It's the area they're lacking, and it's the reason they're here. Without this, you're doomed, man. You have to draft and develop.
Well,
you have to.
I think
unless
it's too late for that.
Unless you sell it for 3 stars, unless you sell your soul like the Nets for Harden, that's fine. Not sell your soul, sell your future.
Brooklyn sold their soul. You
They
nailed it
did.
right there. They did.
Unless you do that and develop, it's the only way it works, guys.
But do you have enough
You
time for
have
it,
to.
John? You have 2 years now with Brown. This is the window. This is the clock that's ticking that we're talking about.
What John's talking about is more like the mid to back end of the draft, right, John? I mean, we're not talking about tank for a top 6 pick.
Oh, and you have to get lucky too at that spot.
Or try to get those picks that landed you Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to begin with. Like, I don't think he's talking about that.
There are 7 guys currently on the sophomore team at the All-Star game that the Celtics could have drafted. Okay, any that are better than the 3 they
and you
did.
feel good about them going back and going in that
What
direction?
I'm saying is there's 7 guys there that they could have drafted with their 3 picks. They busted 2 and they gave away 1. If they had 3 of those guys on the sophomore roster right now, this would be a very good team to be excited about.
Would those guys
for the
be
future.
playing and be panning out here? That's the
again,
key question.
It is. This is why they are where they are. If you give them all away, you better strike gold. If you're giving them away for a veteran that's a little bit better than Josh Richardson, that's questionable. You know, I called him Josh.
That's not even a question that you know. Here's what I will also say. If the
You said
Celtics
Jason
front office,
earlier, but I didn't say nothing. You said Jason earlier.
if the Celtics front office thinks they are 1 or 2 guys away, then they would consider trading those picks. It's
I was
not
going
a
to say they're
Kevin Garnett
delusional if they think
situation.
that.
Exactly, which is why they haven't. It's not a Kevin Garnett
what if-
situation.
But Jimmy, what if Brown comes out this offseason and says all they did was dump Schroeder and we lost round 1? I'm out of here. That's what you're trying to prevent. And the cost is a pick or 2. Oh, it's a
He
no-brainer
should
to
understand.
me.
Brown should understand the situation, just like the rest of the team or the rest of. They should all be on the same page.
This is why I love what Brown did here. If this was his camp, putting some pressure on them. Enough with the picks and the drafts and this and that and slow building and these, make a move, erase a move, all the stagnancy as a front office. Let's see you back up Brown and Tatum. You want to build around
players. They've had guys. They've all left.
There are people confused about what we mean about draft and develop. You drafted Jaylen and Jason, and now they're veterans that you're paying $30 and $40 million to. You have to keep drafting good players, guys.
Yeah.
Like, you don't just do it once and stop. When they get to the point that you have to pay them a lot of money, you need other people that you don't pay a lot of money.
So let's talk about Brooklyn. So
Yeah, but I
Brooklyn,
feel like the Celtics thought that they drafted at least like 2 or 3 rotation guys, and we've talked about it so many times between Romeo, Neesmith,
They thought
Pritchard,
so,
and
yeah.
Grant. And
Yeah.
Grant, they got one, and Grant is he's just now getting there. So I think at the end of the day, their approach was what sort of did them in, and obviously just picking the wrong guys. At least in 2 of those drafts.
so let's talk about the Nets because they obviously trade all their future picks to go in on Harden. They stack the deck. They give themselves a chance to win a title last year, and I think still this year. But not only do they do that, they just find some ways to finagle their way into the first round. They pick up some undrafted guys. They pick some guys in the second round. They don't have picks, but they figure out ways to bring some young guys in. And all of a sudden, you look at their team this year, and it's Cam Thomas, who looks outstanding, better than any of the Celtics young guys. Daron Sharp, who looks great. David Duke, all these different young guys that they've just kind of pulled from places. You don't need first round picks to strike gold. You can find some guys in the second round. You find some undrafted guys who can help you if you have the stars. And the Celtics have the stars. The hardest part is done. You have Brown and you have Tatum. Now you have to surround them with some veterans like the Nets have done with their stars, bring in some young guys.
They're getting
from
guys
anywhere.
who want to play there.
So, yeah, you got to become that. You got to become an enviable destination. And you can't just be rolling Romeo and Neesmith out there hoping that they give you something. You got to bring in some reliable veterans who can help this team now.
Sherrod,
You're
let me
not
ask
getting
you.
guys
What
to come the same way that the Nets are. You don't have
Sherrod,
Durant.
it's a week away. What are you doing? Are you trying to improve a little or taking whatever you can get, like basically having a fire sale and saying, I got 4 untouchable, not 4 untouchable. Obviously you would trade Marcus or Rob.
Smart's available. And
you
Rob,
would trade
in some
up
cases
with those guys, but I'm saying, would you sell everything else if people were like, yeah, sure, I'll give you some future stuff and we'll call it a day?
If you can get stuff for that back end portion of your roster, the guys who are in what we would call the 9, 10, 11, 12 zone, you move them.
But you're not trading Richardson, Schroeder, and those guys?
Schroeder, I would absolutely
We know that.
do that in a heartbeat.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Richardson,
For a bag of balls, right?
Richardson,
it's going to be a dump.
Literally dump. That's a very appropriate term to use.
I don't think that's...
Sherrod, what about Richardson?
He's got an extra year on it.
That would be a tough one, but I would do it. I think for the right pieces, I would do that. I would do it begrudgingly, but I would definitely do it if it makes sense. I mean, if someone's willing to give you like a first round pick, even if it's a conditional one for him, then you absolutely do that because you're not going to get that kind of value for him down the road. So,
I don't know. I don't know why we get so excited talking about trading Brown and the possibilities there when you won't trade.
Who's excited
else.
about that?
Who said
Well, that's where we're headed. Everyone's always excited to have that conversation. Well, they're going to be going there fast if they don't make moves in other places to try to improve this.
I was going to say, when did Sherrod say that? I was like,
I do not believe the trade where you're going to give somebody on the back end of your bench for somebody that's
you're going to get nothing.
I'm saying I don't believe any minor trade they make now with the idea that they're going to stay under the tax, but they want to see if they can improve a little is going to be like, yep, Jaylen, I'm staying. I don't think that's going to be it. Like
this deadline could dictate it.
I don't know.
If it's true.
I don't think it's that deep, Bobby. Because this is the thing that I'm discovering and realizing with the NBA. You really can go from frankly the bottom of the barrel to the top of the mountaintop with just one deal. That's why this whole idea that you only have 2 years. 2 years is a lot. You can significantly transform your roster in 2 years to the point where you have look at the damn Phoenix Suns. They sucked until they got Chris Paul, and then all of a sudden Chris Paul was playing well. Devin Booker was always amazing, and then you get Bridges, and then you get Jalen Smith. You start going down the line. All of a sudden, one player could be the domino that changes all your fortunes, but you've got to find that player. That's the challenge that Brad Stevens has.
I feel like Danny was waiting for that player, right, Sherrod? I feel like or at least he got it, and then every time he had to go on to plan
he's
C and
another
plan
one.
D,
he held on to those picks.
He ran out of options, in my opinion.
I mean, he flipped Isaiah Thomas and Jay Crowder for Kyrie Irving. Great deal. You sign Gordon Hayward through free agency. You get Al Horford, closer to his prime than he is right now. I mean, you look at the last like 4 or 5 years, and you look at the players they had. They had multiple opportunities to put together rosters that compete, but shit happens. I mean, guys get hurt.
Right.
Guys don't want to be here anymore. I mean, you can't control that stuff. All you can do is try to get the talent in your tent, and then you can work with that. And that's what that's the challenge Brad has. He's got to get talent.
And to your point, Sherrod, also real quick, Bob, I just want to get this in. I don't think, to your point, I don't think Jaylen is really looking at the 7th, 8th, 9th spot, being like, we need to get some guys at the end of that bench. No, I think he's thinking, look, I got this, and I think him and Tatum are sort of in that mindset right now. And of course, Marcus Smart, and they're obviously the way he's been playing. Everyone is sort of more in tune with the core of this team. How are we going to get out of this hole? So I think right now, I don't think Jaylen's going to be pissed if this team does nothing, because he's thinking we're that difference maker, right? We're the ones that are going to carry this team into a deep playoff run, not some stranger coming in here and trying to fix things.
And that's what I would watch with Brown. He is immensely confident. When you hear people say, "Oh, you and Tatum,"
especially right now,
he's very starting to put himself in the same conversation as Tatum, and deservedly so. I don't think he's that much of a worse player than Tatum. His potential, at least, he can be every bit as good as him in the right situation. So does he look at it and say, I want to lead my own team eventually? That's what I'm looking for there.
Whatever.
You might be right, Josue. It might not be about the surrounding cast. It might just be about like what they're capable of as individuals there and figuring out together, and Brown eventually saying, let's go do my own thing here.
We're not even sure
at
that's
least not this year.
We're not even sure that's a bad thing. Honestly, you don't know. And if it comes
it's
to that,
a bad thing if it's too late, though. And that's the issue with waiting.
If it comes to that, it comes to that. I mean, we've talked, you guys mentioned it here, and it's a good point. Like, he could be less about bringing in more people and more about give me the friggin' ball, this could be an opportunity situation. He might not like a crowd. It certainly didn't work well when there was, Hayward didn't like it. We've seen this team with too many mouths to feed it not go in the right direction. Tatum and Brown don't seem like guys who can share the ball.
Let's be clear. We've seen very successful NBA stars who have won championships together look at it and say, all right, I'm ready to do my own thing here. Kyrie in particular, Shaq, blah, 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 down the line. For two guys who are immensely talented and aren't even close to a championship right now.
That's fine,
who knows
but
if it gets there.
Let's be real. There's not a team out there that's trading for Jaylen Brown as their alpha. Everyone is bringing him in to be a complimentary star somewhere else. So his situation's not going to change. If he wants to go somewhere else and be the man, he's going to go somewhere else and at best be the 1A, which is what he is now. I don't think his situation's going to improve in terms of like, look at me, everybody built around me. He's not James Harden.
His potential.
He's not James Harden. He's not going to be one of those guys that someone's like, I got to give They're not. He's in that second tier, and that's.
You don't think so?
No, come on.
No,
he's not James.
You're watching the same game, right?
He's not James Harden.
I mean, this guy can.
He's not going to be an all-star this year.
Bobby, he's a guy who's going to be brought in to play alongside another star.
Yeah, it depends where he's going.
Yeah. Right.
What if he goes to Sacramento? He's the face of that team.
Sherrod doesn't.
But they suck. They would
Sherrod's
suck.
holding his head now, Bobby.
They would suck.
This
is the thing about Jaylen. Bobby, you are right. Jaylen is a very good player, but that doesn't make you a damn alpha. Jaylen is right at that Mendoza line between being really, really, really good player, but really, really truthfully being a complimentary guy. And that's nothing wrong with that. He's a 20-point per game compliment. He's a number 2 on a really good team. I absolutely believe that. Absolutely believe that. And I love the fact that he has the confidence to believe that you may think I'm a number 2, but I'm going to put up number 1 numbers. Love that about him. But at the end of the day, if he has to carry a team by himself or he has to be the front and center guy, I think over time, I just don't think he's that type of player. And that's no disrespect to him because he's a hell of a player. I just don't think that's who he is.
Depends if he gets better or not. And I still think there's potential to grow for him.
This is the first year he has not gotten better, which is a bummer. Every year, not only has he gotten better, in many years he's made 2 leaps during the year.
The year's not over, John.
Which is crazy. This is the one year where he's actually regressed some, which is the first time it's happened, and you can give a lot of passes, no offseason
Blame
because of the
COVID.
surgery. He's had COVID like
COVID.
11 times. You know,
So here's the timing thing.
Mac COVID.
no, but I
He
mean,
has.
so there's reasons why, but this is the first year where you're like the handle and the turnovers is a regression. His
Yeah, he went
handle-
back. Yeah.
He went backwards, which is weird, and the shooting
tonight
is
was another bad turnover.
There's
night.
another bad
first-
one.
Five
Yeah.
first half turnovers.
7 turnovers again. That just matches his career high. That's a big
Well,
issue.
which
for him.
which
He's
he
gotta get
had
that down.
which he had 3 games ago. So he's had 7 twice in the last 4 games.
And he had in that Orlando game too, the 50-pointer.
This is the one year where he's definitely taken a bit of a step back, both in his shooting percentage, his efficiency, and his sloppiness. He's really, I mean, and he was sloppy last year. His usage it's about the same, but I mean, 2.8, 2.7, the turnovers, but you can see that handle is loose right now.
So you've talked about this, John, that parlaying a Brown trade into building around Tatum being key, because what worries me about the clock of this team when we talk about 2 years, it's a long time, yes, but if you do push it to the deadline before his free agency and you end up losing him for very little or nothing, that could directly lead to losing Tatum too.
Oh, that's a disaster. You have to. This is
Yeah.
why, again, this report is not crazy. Whether Brown wants
We're
to go
getting
or
close.
not, whether Brown wants to go or not, the Celtics have to look at themselves in the mirror, assess their 2 stars, and say, we're going to plow forward with these guys, and I'm confident we can build around them and keep them, or I'm really worried that this isn't going to work out, and I need to make a move now. And I'm going to move Tatum because I got an extra year. I'm going to move Brown because I got an extra year to show Tatum that this is the right place to be. And that just might be forced upon them, whether they want to do it or not. It might be a reality that they just arrive at. And that's that. And then you have to figure out how are you going to get better if that's the case. Or they might just say, forget about it. We're going with these guys or bust because we'll never get better if we make the move. And then they just ride it out as far as they can and hope he doesn't leave. That's obviously not great. You know, but a lot of teams do that. You play to win. You put as much around them as possible,
star, John.
and then you always have that hook where you can pay them more than anybody else, and you hope that that's reason enough to keep them. It sometimes is, sometimes
you cannot lose him for
a lot of teams do that though, so they got to make a choice.
But they don't have those teams don't have Tatum. Usually you have one star, and that happens, and then you're done when the guy's gone.
I'm not saying one is right or the other, Bobby. I'm just saying they probably have to decide in the summer
very soon. Yeah. I think this the
which
summer,
path they're going.
This is why the report's not crazy to me. I know everyone's saying fake news and conjecture and all these things. Just look at the timeline. Once you pass up on moving him next summer, you're all of a sudden in his contract year. So.
We've kind of been saying that on the show all year.
We've been saying it, yeah. But it's starting to get real, you know, because they've been mediocre. You have a little report out there. You're not really sure. You've seen it not work at times. It's working a little bit better now. But it's just becoming more real as you get closer to it. That's all. That's where we're at. All right, guys, we're done here. What's our next game?
Detroit.
At Detroit.
And at Orlando. Schedule's getting shot.
Sherrod's going home, right?
Oh, look at him. He's so happy.
All right, Sherrod's going home.
What up, though?
Sherrod's one of the only guys I know who can't wait for Detroit to show up on the schedule.
Yeah.
Yes, this is true.
Yeah.
Ben Wallace is not walking through that door, though.
No.
Pop into Greek Town for me.
3-game road trip.
I will not be going to Orlando.
A must-win road trip, Bob?
Oh, well, they're going to blow through Detroit and Orlando. Brooklyn on Tuesday will be interesting, and I'll be there for that.
Don't say that, Bobby, because then when they get their asses smashed.
Sherrod, you know what those teams are like.
And I also know what this team is like.
They're not – if they lose to that level, and they almost did last time to Orlando, but they ended up winning that one. Oh, that would be bad. Like, that's not losing to, like, Minnesota and the Clippers and some of these mentally teams. That's rock bottom. Those teams don't have many wins.
But Orlando plays hard if you watch them at all. They don't lay down.
They don't, but what are they, 10-31?
Yeah, it's a talent thing for sure, obviously. So
Yeah.
We'll see.
Anyway, thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you for watching. As always, as we've told you a zillion times before, but if you haven't subscribed already to our YouTube channel, whether you're watching on the CLNS main channel or if you want to head over to the Celtics All Access channel, you get all of our cool videos there, all of our podcasts, all that good stuff, which you can find there. You can subscribe to Sherrod's A-List podcast. That's awesome. With Gary Washburn and Kwani Lunis. You can also subscribe to fullcourtpress.bulletin.com. Is that correct, Sherrod? I got it right?
Yes. Well done.
For all of his written
About
work.
damn time.
I'm loving Gary's appearances on A-List. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
Oh man, so funny.
Yeah,
y'all,
he's great.
Y'all three.
Love
Yep.
Gary. Love Gary.
Yeah, Bobby Manning, of course, Dome Theory. And I have more stuff here, but I've run out of room and I've run out
Jared
of time.
came on yesterday.
Oh,
Fun appearance by
wow.
him.
Yeah, and a special guest.
A little cameo.
Yeah,
yeah?
a little
John
cameo.
Zannis. John Zannis came in and saved the day. The chatters were stunned to see a Zannis appearance.
Wait,
on
what?
Dome Theory.
Dennis, you popped in there? I gotta watch that episode. That's funny. I didn't know that.
No, it was a for
Little
some
technical
reason.
difficulty issue.
Yeah, Bob, Jared,
Jared's audio shut off.
they couldn't hear him anymore, and I threw my
Jared
tape.
thinks the Celtics
Yeah.
could be in on Yusuf Nurkic, and he's been talking about them looking at a center for a little while now. So that's an interesting one to me. That's a guy who's a rental, who could really help them in the second unit center spot. But you'd have to re-sign him and everything else. So it's interesting. I don't know.
We'll do Nurkic next show, okay?
Yeah, I would have just teased that one. But anyways, new episode Cedric Maxwell
But what-
podcast. We got Dan Shaughnessy on. You guys don't
Yeah.
want to miss that.
Yeah,
Hawks fans out
I
there.
thought I had
Yeah.
I thought I had a
Thanks.
promo for that, Josue, and I was digging, and I don't. So yes, I did want to say that.
I hope
I knew
you
you didn't
call
have
him
it in.
out for the Ortiz.
Oh, Joe, I forgot to ask him about that, dude. Damn it.
Oh well.
He's
Probably
kidding.
best-
Of course, you asked him about it.
That's what the whole episode's about, man. Go check it out, guys. Red Sox fans. Check
Well,
it out.
I hope that you.
Little
What I meant to
yeah.
say. What I meant to say was I hope you gave him shit.
Yeah. Oh, you guys
I
did.
mean,
I
for
was trying to
whatever-
be nice.
For whatever it's worth, it's nothing personal, guys. He's been consistent. He hasn't voted for a single person that's remotely tied to.
Wait, but who does he vote for?
steroids.
Jeff Kent?
We put him on
Yeah,
the stand.
Jeff
We put him
Kent.
on the stand.
Why is
Check it out.
Why is Jeff Kent this guy?
So Jeff Kent has a
Said hi to him
decent
in the
case.
hallway once.
Well, Jeff Kent probably suffers from being a jerk because he was a big
Only
time
guy to ever
jerk.
do it.
But at the end of the day, if you stack up his numbers against
Oh, was
other Hall of
he
Famers,
he wasn't a steroid guy?
no, he wasn't thought to be. But
Allegedly.
also, if you look at him as his career as a second baseman, which he was, even though he wasn't a very good one, and he probably should have moved positions a la Derek Jeter, but he insisted on staying at second. And honestly, one of the reasons he did was because I think he thought his Hall of Fame candidacy would be better as a second baseman. I go stack up his go
That's
to
bad.
Baseball Reference, look at Jeff Kent and look at Ryan Sandberg. Tell me who has better overall numbers, and it's
That's
Kent
fine.
by it's
Yeah, I'll
Kent
get
by
right
a
on that.
It's Kent by a mile.
But I don't know how.
Yeah,
I don't
Yeah,
know
I'm
how
signing on now
Shaughnessy,
to do it.
I don't know how Shaughnessy says, "Oh, this area is filthy. I'm not voting for anyone," and then it's like, "Oh, Jeff
He
Kent,
didn't
he's
say
in."
that. He says if anybody has been tied to it in a way and under suspicion and or caught or tested positive, he's
All right, so
just
Kent's got no ties.
he's
yeah.
just ruled them out. It's not the whole era. It doesn't matter if you agree with him or not. He's pretty consistent on it, and that's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
it. He said the Ortiz stuff six years ago. I disagree with them.
It's a very
Right.
weak link to Ortiz, though.
Yeah.
It's a very weak link. Too weak to just group him. In
I
with
think so
Vaughn.
too. I think it's a crap. I
Whether or not you
disagree.
think so or not, the evidence isn't strong enough. To
John's like, you know what, guys, you're right. Screw him. You know.
No, I totally disagree with it. But I'm saying he's been consistent. So
Yeah, yeah, he has
people who
been,
are
yeah.
upset that it's a
The
poppy
steroid,
thing,
the steroids
yeah.
user saved people like Shaughnessy. Nobody gave a shit about baseball until McGuire rolled around and started hitting bombs out of the park and saved everybody's in baseball's jobs for the next 20 years.
I wish I
So
got to watch.
You
Barry
should have
Bonds.
voted for all
love-
those guys.
I love how
Especially after
Jimmy
that
twists
lockout.
these arguments. I love them.
Yeah.
You should have voted
Did you
for all
guys-
those guys, and along with the ballot, you should have wrote a little thank you note along with the ballot.
Did you guys?
Patriots
the
fans
classic-
should be grateful for Tom Brady. They shouldn't
the
be asking
classic-
for him to
Let me
say
just-
thank you.
That's
Let
a
me
whole
just-
other show.
Let me just ask
This
this.
is the classic Boston fan being like, listen,
Jimmy's just that angry Boston fan. I love it.
Let me ask this.
let them all in.
No,
Let 'em
I'm
all
sick
in.
of I'm
Screw
sick
it.
of the people who are just
Yes.
ungrateful,
No,
spoiled,
did-
entitled. Get out of
did
my
you-
face.
Did
Can't say
you?
with any of you.
You guys enjoyed watching Bonds and Clemens, didn't you?
Of course.
Yeah.
You'd be lying if you said you didn't.
I mean,
Yeah.
it must have been awesome. And he just
Oh, that's
like,
right,
"Hey,
Bobby, you
oh,
weren't
they
even
did-
born
Yeah,
yet.
they
but
did it
Bobby,
right."
that's not the point. The point is, if anybody was clean, those guys absolutely destroyed those guys' ability to earn and their place in baseball history, and they've destroyed the record books for the rest of time.
Well, you know what the
Now,
best argument
they've
I've heard
destroyed the
against that?
game going forward, because before, hitting 700-foot home runs 70 times a year was commonplace, and now a guy puts up a season where he knocks out 44 and everyone's like, yeah, whatever. So
Well, here's
they've made the current game crappy. So so they got
No.
fat off it.
Yeah,
They
no,
made a
yeah,
lot of
current
money,
game crappy.
and they ruined it for everybody. They ruined the history of the game, and they ruined the future
know-
of the game. So
you know the
screw
best-
those guys. Seriously.
No, no, that's not true. I think the way that I think stat nerds have ruined the game, to be completely honest.
What? Oh God, here we go.
You know the best argument I've heard
You
against that
starting
point,
pitcher
though?
can't even go 6 innings anymore because it's like against stat nerd code now. You know, you
Yeah,
better
but,
chance
yo,
of
we're
winning
never-
if you have an opener.
But we're never
and
gonna
a
see
middle
sluggers like
guy
that
and a-
again, man. We're
Here's-
never gonna see sluggers like
You
that.
know the best
It's
argument
like-
I've heard against the John?
Nerds are
true.
ruining the game. Anyway.
Sherrod, you can go. You can go. You don't, you don't,
I knew Jimmy was
Sherrod's-
going to go down this
Sherrod's with
road.
me.
The nerds ruin the game lane.
Yeah. It's the stat
haven't
for everything
ruined the
now.
game.
There's a stat and a reason for everything, and it's just boring.
Wait, are you talking
You know
about the
what's-
Billy Bean? The
No,
Billy
I-
Bean small ball stuff, or what do you mean?
Not necessarily. I mean, I understand. That's just playing
Oh,
with
launch
with the
angle and stuff, home runs and strikeouts. Yeah, I agree, Jimmy.
war,
the game,
shit like that.
the
You know,
game
Guys,
visually is
guys,
terrible.
the thing that bothers me now is you can't even
that's-
get a pitcher to go 6 innings
but
anymore.
again, that's always going to happen. You can make the same argument. What are you, Nick? Now the 3-pointer ruined basketball. Like,
Oh no,
eventually-
but the three's fine to watch. I hate
What I'm
watching
saying is
boom, boom,
people-
boom, 3 swings and you're out.
people are gonna find hacks. They're gonna find more efficient things to
like
do.
steroids.
And the hack is sometimes that you gain more from this than that, and sometimes it's
Yeah.
at the detriment of the entertainment of the game. That's what ends up happening sometimes. You find it happened with hockey and neutral zone trap and stuff like that. Like there's hacks to the games here, and that's what's happening in baseball.
You can
It's-
clean them up in baseball, though.
But
with
it
some
has
little
nothing to do
changes.
with the steroid argument. The steroid argument just destroyed those guys destroyed everything. So anyway,
They didn't though. I think they actually made the game a lot stronger in a lot of ways. You can go
Yeah.
either way with it. They created a lot of baseball fans who are still fans today, just because.
And you
steroids
said
aren't
this
part of
too,
the game.
John. Baseball just watched been nodded. So like, if they're not going to
Yeah.
ban them, who are the writers to ban them? You know?
In my
It just
Baseball
opinion,
reminds us. It
baseball
just
should do
reminds
it.
us that Pedro's the greatest pitcher of all time because he fanned through those guys sometimes. Some of the greatest sluggers.
I'm gonna say this. But you will see Bonds and Clemens in the Hall of Fame one way or the other. Even though they can't be voted in by the writers anymore, there's still ways for them to get in, and I guarantee you'll see them in the Hall of Fame.
A long time from
Um,
now. I think.
No,
A
not
long
even. I
time
would say
from
within
now.
the next 5 years.
Really?
I think they'll get in.
Yeah.
I think Bonds
You
and
know what? Baseball
Bonds and
milked this for
Clemens
10
will-
years because nobody gives a shit about the Hall of Fame.
Bonds
really.
and Clemens will. A-Rod actually might too, oddly enough. But
I think he might.
but the Sosa, McGuire, Palmero guys won't. Anyway,
they
we're
won't,
done,
yeah.
guys. Bye.
Bye.
Don't do steroids. Okay.
It's Cedric
Good
Maxwell
night,
podcast.
everybody.
Talk to me if you're interested.